And now, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Her Excellency Dr. Elka Pangestu, Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy of the Republic of Indonesia, to deliver a keynote speech.
His Excellency Mr. Gita Wirjawan, Minister of Trade, Mr. Anangga Rusdiono, Chairman of ABAC, Mr. Sofyan Wanandi, Chairman of APIDO. I see a number of also vice chairs from Kadin, the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce, distinguished guests, leading people from ASEAN, including the ASEAN Business Council Advisory Council members, as well as distinguished business people from our dialogue partners. I'd like to wish you all good morning, and I feel very honored to be doing the first speech of the day representing the Indonesian government. I know that I won't be able to compete with the many distinguished ministers and leaders who will be speaking after me, but I thought I would just try to take a very broad helicopter view of where we are and where we want to be, we meaning ASEAN and East Asia, in the 21st century global economic architecture. And of course, what this all means for business, because we are in the business summit. And as Pak Sofyan said, there's another summit going on in the other convention center. But I thought maybe this is the real summit. Because without all of you, of course, none of what we talk about in government will happen. So I thought I would talk about 4 themes and try to explain what it means for global and regional architecture, as well as national responses and implications for business. Welcome, Pak Hidayat, Minister of Industry. The 4 themes that I would like to just very briefly address is restoring global stability, revitalizing global growth, boosting trade and investment, and promoting equitable and inclusive growth. Just because these are all the topics that in the various fora, this November has been an extremely full and interesting month. We started with G20, we had APEC, out of which 9 APEC members are G20 members, and now we have the ASEAN and East Asia Summit. So there needs to be a continuum and a consistency between all these forums. First, on restoring global stability. How do we put the global economy back on the path to recovery? I'm not going to go into the details of where we are. I think there's enough discussion about that. It's not a very pretty picture. We have the global crisis unfolding again, this time with the Eurozone being the epicentrum, and this will affect growth and confidence. And markets are rather skeptical as to whether the advanced economies can respond to the challenges on their budget and debt issues. And concerns about governments have moved to concerns about banks that hold their sovereign debt, and banks have pulled back in response more broadly, and this is affecting confidence. And I think our concern also is sourced from the fact that today's situation is very different from 2008. In 2008, we still had the policy space to undertake fiscal stimulus, credit easing, even bail out financial institutions. But right now, most banks in the US and Europe face financial constraints, while most sovereign or countries are so distressed that it would be difficult for them to consider a bailout. And we have seen in the last 2 years the unfolding of what started out as a financial or economic crisis becoming a political crisis. And even in Europe, it's become a questioning about the future of the Eurozone. Nevertheless, we also should not be complacent that emerging markets are okay and Asia is okay, because we need to anticipate and be responsive. Some emerging markets also pose concern for global growth. The three largest emerging economies, China, India, and Brazil, all have their challenges with inflation pressures and are tightening policies. These economies, by the way, contribute at the moment to half of global growth. So if they slow down, then obviously we will be affected also. So the downside risk for Asia, owing to the global situation, is not insignificant. These are weaker export demand and even more volatile capital flows. I think this is really what we have to watch out for. In a crisis, just as we experienced in 2008, you can have capital outflows, and it could be larger than what happened in 2008. Because there has been very high and market capitalization of equity markets that has increased sharply in the last 12 months. So what should we be doing in terms of global and regional architecture, and what should countries be doing, and what should businesses be doing? In the G20, there is an action plan, and here I think we can only, as Indonesia or as ASEAN, by the way, ASEAN is the only regional organization which is represented in G20, we can only voice the concerns and want to ensure that what has been agreed, that indebted advanced economies should adopt credible fiscal adjustment plans and focus on the medium-term structural reforms and so on to support demand. That must be done. And the Eurozone obviously has to come up with a durable solution. But emerging markets should not be, countries from emerging economies should not be complacent. There is no decoupling. You can't think that just because we survived the 2008 crisis, we grew out of it, we rebounded. If the rest of the world is going to be on a downward slippery slope, we will be affected. So we have to manage our policies carefully to avoid overheating and to support global growth. And we will need to manage the consequences of high and volatile capital flows. So this goes for countries as well as ASEAN. In the ASEAN context, finance ministers do have a cooperation mechanism for capital flows, and this needs to be obviously strengthened. And national policies of prudent fiscal policy needs to be continued, manage your public debt, have a comfortable cushion of reserves, and drive ASEAN efforts to strengthen the regional financial safety net. Each country, including Indonesia, should make sure that we have the crisis management protocol in place, as well as having the financial safety net law. And in terms of financial safety net, ASEAN cooperation, ASEAN +3, in terms of the Chiang Mai initiative, which was actually born out of the 97-98 financial crisis. This provides us with an opportunity to really make this work. It is ready for operationalizing, and it is not on its own. It is still linked to the multilateral and IMF processes. But this hopefully should provide a confidence mechanism should there be capital outflows. That was the whole intention of creating the ASEAN +3 Chiang Mai initiative. Second, how about lifting global growth and bringing about broad-based and sustainable growth? This is really basically all in the G20 action plan for strong, sustainable, and balanced growth. How to make sure that it is implemented. I think that's really the key. Advanced economies, again, this is in the G20 framework, but how does the G20 link to APEC? How does it link to ASEAN and East Asia, and what should countries be doing? Because this is really, when you talk about the global, the 21st century global economic architecture, you have to see it in that line of thinking. Advanced economies have to adopt structural reforms to boost competition, increase flexibility of product and service and labor markets, increase training and education, including what do you do with the 9% or 11% unemployment in the US and Europe. There has to be retraining and so on, and improving the business climate. What should major emerging markets do? Our responsibility is to grow, to shift to domestic demand to help support growth and rebalance the global economy. How should we be doing that? First is the countries that do have fiscal space, they should be undertaking fiscal stimulus and reallocating the fiscal expenditure to growth-related or projects or expenditure that will boost growth and have a multiplier effect. The most immediate one, which here is where the role of the private sector would come in, is infrastructure. If you focus on infrastructure, it serves many purposes. It helps to increase your competitiveness to face competition, as Pak Sofian was mentioning. Are we ready? If we want to be ready, we need to have the infrastructure support to make us be able to compete and be connected. Second, it creates jobs, it creates demand for goods and services in your country as well as imports. So it helps to rebalance growth. And third, it also serves equitable development because it reduces disparities within your country between more isolated regions and more connected regions. So infrastructure, if you like, whether it's what you do nationally, whether you do it regionally, or whether it's a global financial deal, the idea is how do you channel surplus savings, which are a lot of it is in the Asian countries, to investments in infrastructure. Indonesia has an infrastructure plan. ASEAN has the ASEAN Master Plan of Connectivity, and it has also launched the ASEAN Infrastructure Fund. How do you scale up these efforts? How do you have public-private partnerships? Think out of the box. And how do you scale up with PPP as well as the role of multilateral development banks or sovereign wealth funds? I think this is a very important idea that needs to be developed, and I do hope the private sector will take this up. Because Asia is going to account, at the moment East Asia counts for 35% of GDP in the world. And by 2050 we will be accounting for 45% of GDP. And we also account for more than half of the world population, size of the middle class and young population. These are all the positives of what's happening in East Asia and ASEAN, which we need to not miss the opportunity, as Pak Sofian mentioned. Third, boosting trade and investment and creating an enabling environment for growth and development. Making sure trade and investment continues to flow is a costless stimulus. You don't need to have a budget outlay for that, but it would contribute a lot to growth. How do you ensure open markets and face increased protectionist measures, which happens when you have unemployment being high in many of these countries? There are several things we need to do at the G20 level, at the regional level, as well as at the national level. We had a lot of discussion about this in 2008 when there was this huge fear about increased protectionism. The assessment to date suggests that despite global recession and weak recovery, there has not been any significant increase in the level of protectionism. What countries have done, fortunately, is to undertake some protectionist measures, but it is within the so-called WTO rules. It has been relatively transparent, and in some cases, countries have actually taken the opportunity to open up more and undertake reforms because they want to attract investment. But this will be in the political economy context of many countries. Indonesia is not alone in this. All countries face similar issues, just like what Pak Sofian said. Are we ready? What do we do to make ourselves ready nationally? These are questions that are obviously being asked by politicians, by policymakers, and business people. So how do we come up with the balance of policy which maintains openness of trade and investment, but when we need to, and it often does happen, we need to protect certain sectors temporarily, or we need to facilitate and empower certain parts of the economy. What are the policy tools that we can use? And here is the dialogue between the business and the government, which will be very important. Enhancing the investment climate, keeping it open, continuing to do your reforms. This is also part of the national and regional response that must happen. And in the ASEAN context, in the ASEAN Economic Community blueprint, actually what you have to do is all there. And we have another 3 years to achieve this roadmap. But a lot of it now is focusing on facilitating trade and investment flows, including the national single window or the ASEAN single window, which hopefully will make the 10 national single windows become one ASEAN single window and really expedite border clearance of goods by providing traders with a single point for clearance of documents. Hopefully, we can do similar steps for the movement of people. Wearing my Minister of Tourism hat is very important. One of the ideas that came up this year is to have ensure that all ASEAN nationals do not need visa when they visit each other within ASEAN, and then to have a kind of like a Schengen visa for non-ASEAN nationals, so that when they come in to any one ASEAN country, they can go to other ASEAN countries. This should benefit people-to-people movement, not just tourists, but also business people, and this should have a lot of economic benefits. This hopefully can be achieved for next year. And we should build on the success of the APEC business card, which I understand from my business friends. This has been a very positive outcome of APEC. And I think the final point I would make on keeping trade and investment open is basically what do you do about the architecture of the trading system. And basically here, we do still need to ensure the multilateral trading system is kept open, rules-based and fair. And here, all I would say is that whatever happens in the WTO, we hope that there will be a way forward and that people should not lose confidence in the multilateral trading system. And then meanwhile, what do you do with all the regional FTAs and bilateral FTAs that are in the region? Hopefully, at this summit, we will be coming up, ASEAN leaders will be coming up throughout a process that has happened throughout this year with a rules of engagement as to how do you keep ASEAN centrality, but at the same time engage and consolidate all the FTAs that are already in the region. Because regional integration at the end will ensure that our economies grow, the region grows, and if the region grows, then the global economy will also grow. But again, infrastructure within that as rebalancing growth is very important. The final point I would make is ensuring that you promote equitable growth. Ensuring growth is inclusive, broad-based, and resilient. Because otherwise, as all of us have faced as policymakers, as politicians, and even as representatives of the business sector, I do not think you can continue economic integration if the benefits of economic integration are not widely spread. And widely spread in the ASEAN context means between ASEAN countries, the lesser developed and the more developed, within ASEAN countries, especially for large countries like Indonesia, between business players, the large versus the SMEs. And I would add something which ASEAN has only just begun to address, but which maybe we have to model ourselves from APEC, ensuring that women are also very much included in the process of development and growth and development. And here, as you know, at the APEC summit, there was a declaration on women and the economy. And it really would be a shame if you did not make sure that 50% of your human capital is being utilized fully, because all the data show that women are still being undervalued and underestimated. And this is not just about gender equality or fairness, but it makes economic and business sense. Women are half of the human capital, so increasing participation of women will mean increasing growth, equity, and reducing poverty. Do you know what is the largest economy in the world? And it would be a badly managed corporation, all of you out there, if you did not realize this. Do you know that the largest economy in the world is a 12 trillion size of the consumption of spending by women globally? So probably all of you know it already, but spending decision, probably 60 to 90% of spending decision, depending on what the product or service is decided by women. So not only are we half of the human capital, but we are also the one who makes the buying decisions, and therefore this is very important for production, productivity, and so on. So let's be clear, do not, in terms of inclusive growth, this is something which I hope that the ASEAN and East Asia and you, the business people, if you have not recognized it, then you should be recognizing it. I think in terms of equitable development and growth, in the G20 there is already a development action plan, and it focuses on infrastructure again. You see infrastructure again and again comes up. So we really need, I think if I can make a call, if you can really focus on infrastructure, because of all the, it can benefit those three things: growth, jobs, and equitable development. It's in G20, in ASEAN, as well as in Indonesia nationally, financial inclusion is the other issue, and finally, food security. On equitable development, ASEAN has recognized this, and there will be, again, leaders will be coming up with a framework for equitable ASEAN. And it will very much focus on how policies need to be designed, including the participation and partnership with the business sector, to make sure that all the programs, not just the programs that are intended for equitable development, but all programs make sure that equitable development is equally shared. Financial inclusion and remittances of workers is some of the concrete action plans that are already going to be discussed in APEC. And here I hope the business sector will be contributing to ideas on this, because this is, financial inclusion is about ensuring SMEs can get access to capital. It's about ensuring women also can get access to capital. And the data actually shows that only 20 to 40% of Asian countries, population of Asian countries have access to financial services. If you take poor households, it's an even lower number. For Indonesia, 52% have access to financial services, but only 21% of poor households have access to financial services. This is not about equity. Again, this is about business. Because the bottom pyramid, as you all know, is good business. If they're poor, it doesn't mean they're not productive. Yeah? And a number of banks have, and consumer companies, they do try to analyze this bottom pyramid, and it is a good business if you know how to design the product. And therefore, I do hope that the governments as well as governments and private sector will have continued discussion on this to find the win-win solution. Finally, on the food security, despite the global crisis, we still have challenges. Food security, energy security, water scarcity, how to cope with natural disasters. Natural disasters have had the impact of course, lives, but as we can see from the Thai floods and the Japanese tsunami and radiation accident, it also affected the supply chain. Yeah? So here is a question out there for you business people. What should we be doing about that? In terms of cooperation and being responsive to all that. So I think I would like to close with what does this all mean for the business people? You are in the right place if you are here today in this room. The right place to invest is Asia, and the right place to do business is in Asia. And don't miss the opportunity. I'm kind of quoting Pak Sofian here. So I was told there are 1,000 people here, so all of you, please network to find opportunities to do business with each other, as well as to give us, government, real concrete recommendations as to what we need to do to make sure that you don't miss this opportunity. Pak Sofian asked, can we do it? Don't ask, just do it. So, otherwise, you're going to miss this opportunity in terms of the size of the population, the growth, the highly skilled labor force, and this is the time for the business to be partner with the government, so that you will be part of the change and that you will be part of the defining moment and change, which could yield to a much better and more responsive business model. You also have to change to be more responsive, and that emerging Asia will have to change too. We can no longer compete with low-income, low-wage economies in the export of commodities and manufactured goods alone. We do need to move from resource-driven growth towards innovative and creative economy. So I have to get to my portfolio, right? So creative economy is the way, part of the fourth wave of economic growth, because you have a resource which is never ending, which is ideas, and ideas are within people, and this is where businesses and government need to have policies which focus on strengthening human capital and building environment that is conducive to innovation and entrepreneurship. So I will close on that note. I'm sorry I took 5 minutes more than my allocated time, but I would just repeat what I just said. Don't ask, can we do it? Just do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ibu Mari Pangestu, for being our first keynote speaker for this real summit, as mentioned by you. And now we will continue with the panelist discussion, ladies and gentlemen. And we will, please bear with us as we will prepare the stage for the panelist session, which will take place shortly. And before you leave the venue, ladies and gentlemen, please extend a round of applause to Ibu Mari Pangestu once again. Thank you very much indeed, Ibu.